right now. Trump just finished speaking at an event in D.C. called Fighting Anti-Semitism in America. Now, the timing is very effective. This is thrown by the widow of a prominent Jewish megadonor named Sheldon Adelson, okay? Now, always been a big conservative, always been a Trump fan, but this is a lot bigger than right versus left, okay? This is about who is righteous when it comes to remembering who your real ally is in the Middle East, Israel. Trump plans to give a speech now, after finishing this, at the Israeli-American Council. He is making it clear he's on the side of Israel in the fight for its existence. And by extension, he is on the side of Jews in America who feel the pain acutely and personally there and here, especially thanks to what's happening on our campuses, what's being allowed to happen on our campuses. Now, being with Israel was never a surprise in American politics. They are clearly our main ally in a desert of deception that is the Middle East. That is, until now. You have some fringe righties with significant followings on digital media, although they are an unknown quantity when it comes to the ability to affect votes, but they have been going bad on Israel. And you have legit elected leaders in the Democratic Party who are implicitly or explicitly hostile toward Israel. AOC, who did not have the courage to say what was obvious about President Biden, is now saying what is absolutely not obvious about Israel, accusing them of war crimes for the pager and walkie-talkie attacks. First, how can you conclude that they have broken the law, not a lawyer, let alone an international law expert, and then call for an investigation? When are we going to stop accusing and then investigating? You look first, learn first, then accuse. But of course, that's not what you do when you're just playing politics, right? But this is nothing to play with. We are living a major moment. We are on the brink of a regional war. Israel did not ask for this war. And we've been here before, not just there, here. Now, AOC and many with opinions on the current conflict were either too young, are apparently choosing to ignore, or just don't get our own recent history. 9/11, the anniversary just passed barely a week ago. Man, we did not take it seriously enough. We have forgotten to never forget. After that massacre, America raced into the war on terror. It shaped my life and my career. Christina and I got married. We got engaged 11 days after 9/11 because of it. Okay? I lived it intimately. I lost people. I saw what was done. I lived it. Okay? Congress voted on that war. Okay? Which almost never happens. And then let the military do basically whatever it wanted for the next 20 years on an authorization that was justified in 2001. Not only did we go into the wrong country, but we killed hundreds of thousands, injured hundreds of thousands. And we were not in Pakistan, where we would later learn OBL had been chillin', or in Iran, which is the head of the snake, or in Saudi Arabia, which is the birthplace of Wahhabism that is the extremist birthplace of ideologies like Islamism. And yet it was all righteous. That was us and our allies. Israel suffered an attack of the same relative scale on October 7th, but that's where the similarities end. America faced no imminent direct threat. There were more attacks to come, but nothing of this scale, thank God. We're not surrounded. There are no formidable countries looking to team up against us. Israel checks all of those boxes. They are surrounded by terror organizations. and Arab enemies. This is a fact. They have been attacked constantly since October 7th. Hezbollah, okay, in Lebanon, has tens of thousands of real trained fighters who also happen to be zealot terrorists. They are designated as such by us, with a blood oath to destroy Israel. Their leader just said as much. Oh yeah, but the pagers, killed people, maybe, well, if you're holding a pager that Hezbollah gave you, not a lot of people have pagers these days. Not a lot of people have walkie-talkies. You know who has them? Terrorists. Is there too much death? Of course. Of course there is. Okay, so then it has to stop. How? How? You're going to ask, Israel should stop unilaterally, right? Because they're the strongest, so they should stop, right? Surrounded. People determined to destroy them. Because we did that, right? We didn't do anything like that. But you're going to ask them to do it. You're going to accuse them of international law problems. Now, I know AOC was like in high school or something when it happened here, but just a totally different standard because it's the Jews, right? It's just easier to go after them. Can't go after us that way. Almost every expert in that region who knows about that region says this is Israel, that walkie-talkie pager thing, doing the least, not the most, and here's why. They're not looking to start a war. They're looking to disrupt Hezbollah's ability to start a war. This is terrorizing the terrorists, as my producer remarked today. So the idea that they are looking to commit atrocities is contradicted by Israel's capacity and their tactics. But moreover, they are under siege. Did you know that the whole northern part of Israel has been largely evacuated? Close to 100,000 people displaced? Hundreds of homes damaged or destroyed? Dozens killed? The results of thousands of rockets from Hezbollah. Just take a moment. God forbid. If 10 rockets came in and hit Texas from Mexico, what do you think we would do? 10,000 rockets from Hezbollah, depending on whose number you want to believe, since October 7th. If not for the Iron Dome, there may be no Israel, or we would be in a major regional war already. There will be no ceasefire. Not now. Israel put a good deal on the table. We'll give you back all the Palestinian prisoners in one phase. Let the people who want to kill us leave so that the Palestinians are no longer in the grip of a terror organization, and give us back our people. That's a bad deal. Oh, I forgot. That's with the other terror organization, the one on the southern border, Hamas, that's sworn to destroy Israel, not the northern one. Not the northern one that's sworn to destroy Israel. The one in the south, the one that massacred so many on October 7th and is still holding over 100 of their people, some Americans. But Israel's committing genocide. Israel are the criminals. We're ignoring violence at home, right? People trying to kill someone running for president, threatening bombs and attacks and stupid neighbors. And we're ignoring the reality of who our friends are and what the reality is about abroad. Everyone wants less death. No one wants to deal with how it happens. Just give me the how. Get a ceasefire. That's like asking for world peace. How? How do you get the ceasefire? Silence. It took us 20 years to beat a far inferior enemy with a massive coalition and the largest, best fighting force in history. Now, let's take AOC as an example. I would argue she's being reactionary and incomplete in her thinking. But, if you want to be zero tolerance, start at home. Have you heard AOC talk about the assassination attempts in any full-throated way? About what she thinks it means about America and what it should be? Not a damn word. Why? Because Trump is a bad guy. He says bad things, hateful things, despotic things, seeds violence. So he gets what he deserves. That's the argument, right? Good. Keep that same energy in the Middle East. Israel didn't start this. They're not saying they want to exterminate anybody. They're not saying that there shouldn't be these countries around them. Double standards reveal your deception. Keep that same energy. If you don't give a damn that people are trying to kill Trump, and that's your choice, and so many of you make it, by the way. Chris, what's happened to you? Why are you supporting Trump? I don't support Trump. I support his right to exist. I don't like what comes out of his face. I don't think he should be killed for it, and I don't think you should ignore it when people try. You wouldn't do that if it were Harris or Biden. You either give a damn about humanity or you don't. And if you want to play what you're playing at, which is that Trump asked for it, keep the analysis in the Middle East. Israel did not ask for this. This matters, and people must be held to account for one simple reason. I don't know that it makes a big difference who wins the election. I'll be honest. You can say this guy's a threat to democracy, she's a commie in waiting, whatever BS hyperbole you want. That's what you want to be about it. I think it's all nonsense. The Middle East is not nonsense. If there is a regional war, we will be involved. I don't care what anybody tells you. That's what's going to happen. I'm going to be there. And there are going to be a slew of us that go and leave our families and go and watch people kill each other really ugly for a long time, because this is not ending. So we need to talk about it, and people must be on the record. Now, that's why Trump is doing what he's doing. The fighting anti-Semitism thing. He knows that Jews matter. And by the way, he knows he's on the right side of this. And he is. Now, I'm not saying that Jewish people are going to beat you with their votes, right? I mean, they're like 2% of the population. But they have money and influence. And they have a righteous cause.